So yeah, so there's something my understanding of this is a little bit hazy.
Yeah.
But as I understand, like this is one of the paradoxical things that actually helped African American culture utilize the 70s legacy and the 60s legacy in the 80s, right? In relation to hip hop, right? Which was that copyright protects, or at that time, copyright protected. Basically the written form, right? So like say you were James Brown, right, and you wrote Funky Drummer, right? But the thing was, Funky Drummer wasn't actually written, right? It was played, it was like jammed, right? So it's a bit like oral culture, right? It privileges sort of liveness, right? It doesn't privilege writing something down. So if someone who holds the copyright for like a Beatles tune, right? They hold the copyright on the sheet music, right, and on the right to perform that music. That's what they hold the copyright on. That was how it worked at that particular time. I think they had to change this legislation in the 1980s because of sampling, right? So the guys who held the copyright on the Amen, if insofar as they had a copyright, it was on the notes, right? It was on the sequence of the notes, right? Even though the Amen itself is a collage of previous works, right? So copyright is kind of weird in this kind of context. It doesn't quite map in the appropriate way, but they basically, other people profited, right? People started releasing ultimate breaks, right? There were like, I don't know how many of these, 20 albums, something like this, and they were basically bootlegs, right? They said, oh look, here's a great tune, they just lifted it, they repressed it, and they circulated it, and they turned a book out of it, right? And there's people who still do this, who claim that they hold the copyright for Amen Brother, right? There are people who do that who actually, they don't hold the copyright, right? But also another thing is that a lot of the people involved never had any money to pursue copyright anyway, right? So James Brown, his record label did. He doesn't seem to have been all that interested in it, although he was a little bit interested in it, right? But these guys, Coleman and everybody, the people associated with recording Amen Brother, they were never in a position financially to pursue copyright, you know?
Yeah.
But also I think it would have gone, like a lot of the early hip-hop stuff was incredibly eclectic, right? So people like Grandmaster Flash, they would just sample anything. They would sample Queen, they didn't draw a distinction, you know, it was like plunderphonics, right? They would just take any recorded sound that they could, you know? So for them, copyright wasn't so important. I mean, the copyright thing is it's about the money, right? It's not really about the ownership, and in some ways it's not really about the moral, it's not even about the moral right, you know? I mean, you can say, there are people who go, oh, you know, maybe this guy should have gotten some money out of this, you know, or maybe, like, he seems to have died without really knowing what he had done. He pops up a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
You see him here and there, and he is going, "Oh, this is how black culture got ripped off, and we never got any money out of this." And like, there is part of the thing about the legacy is, I mean, like, it's a little bit complicated with it's ethnically marked, right? There's something going on about ethnicity, and there's something going on basically. You can make an argument about appropriation, right? About racial appropriation, right? About young white kids taking this thing as a marker of authenticity and stealing, basically, or appropriating. It's like cultural imperialism, right? They take this legacy, this thing from African American culture, and they use it to their own ends, and these guys don't get any money out of it, you know. And I think that there is something going on actually where people are trying to acknowledge that, right? And people are trying to go, oh yeah, you didn't get any money out of it, but without you, it wouldn't be here, you know. But then also people say, well, if it wasn't one thing, it would have been another, right? Like if it wasn't that particular break, it would have been some other particular break. Something, it was just going to happen, but that's our retrospective understanding of it, right? There's a thing about like retrospective inevitability, right? Like we look back and we go, oh yeah, it was bound to go that way, but loads of things are contingent, you know, they don't have to go the way they do. Yeah. It just so happened that it went that way. Yeah, so yeah, people can say that. I don't I'm not sure that I buy that, right? Partly because you can actually write down the thing, and also because there's a thing about the fact that it's specific to the sound itself, right? No one is really, I mean, people have tried, but no one is interested in just going, oh yeah, look, let's just we'll play the loop, and then we'll use that, and it will be just as good, because it won't, right? Because there's something about the quality of the sound itself, and also there's something about the identifiability of the sound. People want that particular sound. That's the one that they want. They want that because of its legacy and because of the way that it refers. It refers so successfully and so strongly, and it signifies so well. That's why they want it. So it's disingenuous to say, oh, it's like the C chord. It's not. It's not anonymous or innocuous in that kind of way.